Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Call Centre and Customer Management Expo Live and to our third live conference session of the day, this time on solving the multi-channel riddle. I'm Claudia Hathaway, editor of Call Centre Focus, and I'll be hosting today's session, so thank you for joining us. Now, we do want this session to be as interactive as possible, so please do ask any questions you may have as we go along. You can do this by simply clicking on the Questions tab on your control panel on the bottom left of your screen. Then type your question in the box provided and then just click Submit Question, and I'll be able to see those questions to ask our panellists. So let's just try and give that a go quickly now. So if you can just go onto your Questions tab and enter in where you are logging in from today. So just type in your location and click on the Submit button, and I'll be able to see where everyone's calling from. Okay, so we've got Kathy from Basildon, Jodie from Crawley, Ian in Oxford, Dawn from Wolverhampton. Oh, we've got lots flooding in there. Okay, so I think everyone's got the hang of that. So let's get on with the session. Now, there can be no doubt that consumer demand for more ways to contact a company is increasing, but many organisations seem to be falling behind in offering service via these alternative channels. So why is this? Is it too complicated? Are companies worried about the potential risks in investment in technology that could help manage these different routes? Well, I'm delighted to say that today we have a couple of expert panellists to help us get to the bottom of this quandary. So Paul Wheeld has 12 years business consultancy experience, and his contact centre knowledge covers all aspects of people, process, technology, and the customer experience. And Osman Ali, meanwhile, co-founded Protocol One in 2003, and he also has 12 years experience in customer relationship management, specialising in intelligent call routing, management information systems, and workforce optimisation. So Paul and Osman, thank you so much for joining us, and it's over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia. So we're going to split the agenda down into three particular areas. So I'm going to kick off by setting the context around the cross-channel riddle. Then I'll pass over to Osman to talk us through how technology can solve this puzzle. And then thirdly, the consultant in me wouldn't feel honest unless I was talking to you about return on investment. So I will cover that off. If you have any questions as we go through, then please submit them, and then Claudia will be moderating a session at the end of the day, and we hope that will be very interactive and sort of worthwhile. So I guess the first question is, we're very familiar with handling voice conversations. Why is it so tricky now when we've got to add into that mix email, SMS, text chat, and in the future social media? Well, I guess the reason is that if we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, and remember we are also customers ourselves, that increasingly we turn to a number of different media when we're doing our own research around our own personal sort of buying preferences. So in other words, you'll go to the internet. Who these days doesn't type into Google the particular product or service they're interested in? You then research the answers. You maybe talk to family and friends, which you can do increasingly online through social media. And then, armed and being an informed buyer, you will then hit the streets and go through the retail experience. And that's changing the dynamics of how, as businesses, we need to support those customers. We need not only to ensure a consistent and high-quality experience across all channels, but we need to actually pull together those disparate threads and turn that into a conversation with our customers rather than just a series of interactions. So, before we get going, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you a question, and again that's just very helpful for us in terms of understanding where the audience is now. So, in terms of the channels that you support today in your contact centre, can you please pick one of the following four options? I know I sound like a little bit like an IVR here, but never mind. One of the following four options in terms of, do you currently just support traditional voice channels, Or secondly, have you added correspondence channels like email, post and fax? Thirdly, have you moved into voice and multimedia, so providing online support including email and potentially SMS? And lastly, do you provide all of those services plus social media? So I'll just give you a second to think about that. So please choose from one of the following 4 options.
What are you expecting from this poll, Paul? Do you think most people are moving into multimedia now, or?
Well, I'm interested to press the button and find out, Claudia. I suppose this is where I set myself up to fail, but I think we will have broadly 50% that are more the voice and a smattering across the other areas. If we've got some people in the multimedia and social media, then I'll definitely be interested to follow up with them to learn their sort of experiences. Okay, so I think that's time. Let's press the button. And how wrong I was, Claudia. So we've only got 6% of you out there who are just doing voice only. We've got the highest number of responses, so 54% are doing voice and correspondence, 29% voice and multimedia, and 2% are the leaders here in terms of the multi-channel riddle because you're doing multimedia and social media. Okay, so we've certainly got the interest of the audience about solving the multi-channel puzzle. So in terms of the challenges that this presents to the contact centre, then if we were to set a set of requirements, then I think these 4 would figure very high. So in other words, as you're beginning to develop and support multiple channels, then you need to make sure that there is a consistent communication experience across those. And I think one of the ways that you do that is actually make it easier for agents to know what information has been said previously by a customer. And that infers that there's some sort of universal customer history record, so some way of logging contacts and then making them visible to the agent so that they can see the series of interactions and turn that into a conversation. The third thing is that you actually are able to manage those channels within the existing contact centre resource pool and also being mindful of the different SLAs. So in other words, we know that you get an additional amount of time to respond to correspondence, but increasingly as you move towards some of the newer multimedia capabilities like web chat, then you need to be able to respond to those in near sort of real time. And lastly, queue management. So this is about making it easy for agents to be able to handle different types of contact with a customer through an existing IT interface. And we'll be touching on this later on in the sort of presentation. Okay, so before we get into the meat of the discussion, I just want to take you through an example. And this relates to a project that Protocol One was involved in a couple of years ago, and it concerns Childline and the challenge that they faced as they moved from being a purely telephone-only service to actually offering a whole range of different channels. So bearing in mind that the rationale of Childline is to actually offer a service to vulnerable young people, the challenge that they faced was how to communicate in the sort of modern era. And what I've got next is just a couple of minutes by way of a video cast that was developed at the time of launching the service that I think illustrates very strongly what they've actually achieved.
Childline has always been there for children. When they needed to call, Childline was a telephone number. But times have changed. Childline has evolved. It's more than a telephone number now. It's a place where all children can be themselves. It's a place where they can talk, if they want to. Whatever their worry, Childline is always there for them. The new Childline site helps children find the information they need and express themselves in new ways. It helps them talk to each other and helps us understand how they're feeling.
I think about it a lot. I can't help it. I thought about telling Miss Johnson, because she's really nice, but I didn't. I saw this advert for Childline. You can chat in private, just like on MSN. Waiting to chat was really hard, but there's this tool for drawing while you wait, so I had a go. The counsellor could see my picture. She asked me what it was. It's my mum's favourite teacup. I told her it was broken now. It broke when my dad threw it at my head. We talked about my dad losing it, and my mum doesn't help me. It felt weird. It was just me in my room. No one else could see, so I told her everything. We chatted for ages. She said it wasn't my fault. I draw lots of pictures now. I like the message board too. It's my place.
Some things will always be difficult to say, but Childline makes it easy to try. The website is just the beginning. We want to train more counsellors, develop more ways for children to talk, open every possible channel we can. Be ready for the future of listening. Childline. Growing as they grow. Learning as they learn.
Okay, so very powerful and emotive story. In terms of the contact centre activities that are behind that, then this was a major transformation project for an SPCC, because at the same time, when they started out on the project, they had a very disparate telephony strategy, some 20 sites across the UK, agents spread across those, and a basic split of call distribution to each site. And the challenges that they gave them are around how to actually manage the workforce when effectively you've got 20 mini sites, how you drive up agent utilisation, how you also make sure that you actually answer the calls. And similarly, what was the way in which they were going to be able to support these channels as they actually emerged. So what they did in terms of a business approach was actually virtualise. So create a single resource pool from a workforce management perspective, and use skill-based routing to find the best resource regardless of the location. They also applied common tools, because what they needed to do was to make sure that the frontline agents, who were a number of which were part-time volunteers, were able to actually interact regardless of whether the young person who was contacting them was doing it by phone or email or web chat. So essentially a common agent desktop was a key part of the overall solution. Technically, it was implemented using Genesis. That then gave a common interaction management platform that could be accessed across all the different media types, could integrate to all the main sites, and potentially staff working from home. So what was the result? Well, they managed to achieve two very complex routing strategies, not only voice but also the multi-channel, and they were able to do that in a way that gave them only one system to actually train users, and also to prioritise. I think we saw an example of that, being able to set an expectation while someone was queuing for a sort of web agent, that there were other things that they could do online in terms of sort of draw and so forth. So a very sophisticated solution, and one that required at the time a transformational business strategy to make it happen. Now, if we fast forward through to the current time, and again, the SPCC story is a sort of couple of years old now, then there are now even more things to consider in terms of solving the multi-channel riddle. I think that the key thing that's happened in the past 12 months has been the advent of sort of social media. This is now becoming a sort of multiplier effect in terms of as people are tweeting, as I know UBM are doing this afternoon about this particular event, but as people are tweeting about our product and our services and our brands, that's something that we not only need to be able to monitor, but potentially we need to be able to respond. And it's the contact centre that's actually facing those challenges. And those are things like how you want to actually engage when you want to respond, and how you can meet customer expectations. I think these days, if someone tweets your particular brand with in a dissatisfied way, I think best practice is that you've actually got about 15 minutes to actually respond to that, maybe an hour if it's via Facebook. So again, very much emerging challenges around sort of social media. Okay, so before we move on to Osman, there is a second question, and again, this is very much to set the scene for us as a presentation team. And that's to get an understanding about who in the audience is already actively engaging in social media. So I guess we want you to answer to one of the following three questions. So either, yes, your contact center is driving the social media support strategy, or secondly, a kind of maybe answer where other stakeholders, for example, marketing, are driving the strategy and you in the contact center are being involved, or thirdly, whether yet you have no plans to support social media.
It is a bit of a quandary, isn't it, Paul, that who in the organisation should kind of own social media, if you like, or if anyone should own it?
Well, what we're finding now, Claudia, is that if we can help a client get in the room at the same time, the contact centre, marketing and IT, that then begins to start to unlock some interest into doing social media into something much more sort of achievable. But if you don't get those three stakeholders, then it sort of becomes a sort of challenge.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think it's also important to know that until recently, it's been only people sitting in their workstations watching their own accounts. That has been the only mechanism that they can really use to monitor social media interaction. And I think while the technology develops, especially what we have developed, you would find that that's changing the whole thinking around how they can actually manage social media.
Yeah. Good. Well, let's have a look.
Okay. I'm glad you didn't ask me to predict here, because I think I probably would have. I can now say, of course, Claudia, I would have predicted that the majority of people will be in the sort of maybe camp. So,
of course, yes.
I don't think that's a particular surprise. Again, I think I'm encouraged to see that only 16% haven't yet considered sort of social media. And again, we've got some leaders. We've got 12.5% where the contact centre's driving the social media strategy. Very impressive. Okay, so before I hand over to Osman, I just want to kind of paint the picture then that the role that technology can actually play. I mean, we all know that technology is purely an enabler, but I think if we take on board what we've learnt from supporting Childline NSPCC, then we can see that the technology solution does need to help us manage these cross-channel conversations. And it does mean that as we introduce new media, we need to be able to do that in a way that actually enables us to break that down on a channel-by-channel basis. Thirdly, ideally, providing some sort of workflow engine that maintains the contacts for our staff, provides a contact history, and lastly, does provide an ROI not only for the transformational projects, but I think more importantly these days for tactical projects. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Osman, who's going to help us define how technology can solve this puzzle. Osman.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Claudia. Right, so how can technology solve this puzzle for us? From what we've learned with companies like NSPCC and having done a number of these projects with a multitude of clients, we have essentially what we've done is we have consolidated our experiences, our know-how into what we now call G-Cloud, which is our hosted proposition. And this is where I believe it's important to be able to put in that context while we can talk about point solutions and we can talk about how within each organization we can look to solve this problem. Every organization will have a different answer. And the proposition here is that we can actually turn to a very simpler way of solving this puzzle, and that's with Genesis technology in the back end, which inherently has a customer interaction management platform that can rationalize all media channels into a consistent interaction and hence a conversation into your contact center. So what is it about G-Cloud that makes it a compelling platform for anybody with a multi-channel riddle to solve? Essentially, it is a out-of-the-box, a standard templated Genesis-based contact center solution, which is to be offered in a hosted stroke SaaS-based model. I can use a lot of acronyms if we need to, but it is very much a on-demand pay-per-use model that we're offering here. But what it does offer is multi-channel and social media capability in a box. So essentially, it will give you the ability to integrate any of those channels into your contact center and truly being the technology enabler that people we believe are seeking at the moment. In addition to that, it hasn't forgotten the traditional world of telephony, so it still has all your capability around inbound call routing, as well as outbound dialer campaign management. What we have in addition to all of that is a quality management system that allows people to then inspect the same interactions to ensure consistency within their processes as well. Of course, it will not be complete if we are not able to do effective workforce management within our contact center, and we have a number of tools and functionality to enable back offices to be much more active, back office functions, I should say, to be much more active within the contact center, so that you are able to offer that consistent experience throughout your organization, which essentially, as a bundle together, is a cost-effective method of deploying your new technology, or I should say the new capability for handling multi-channel in a flexible and a scalable manner with a pricing package that makes it easier to engage and fulfill your strategy for multi-channel within your contact center. So then the question becomes: is that all that is fine? Who should be considering these things? And our view is that the organizations that would consider the use of such technologies are not only the ones that appreciate the need for engaging their customers and their end customers through different interaction methods, but also are looking for a degree, or I should say a number of attributes within the technology platform. So flexibility, scalability, and business agility, I'm sure, are on top of the agenda whenever you think about buying any kind of technology. But what holds people back from going into and embracing things like multimedia and social media is the big bill that's staring them in the face in terms of their IT and infrastructure costs. With a hosted proposition, of course, you're not buying, as a consumer, you're not buying any of that technology. A flexible OpEx-based solution essentially means that you are buying it all as a bundle and as a service, which, as a hosted solution, also it gives you the ability to bring in multiple sites, because in these days, with the availability of data networks, turning your multiple geographical sites into a single virtual site is not a problem. But what it also does is that it helps you deploy your technology much faster within your organization. You have it ready-made for you, ready to be switched on, that you can deploy to your business users as and when it is required. And it's not only that you buy all of it or nothing. We have the capability for deploying the same thing in a hybrid fashion. So, with that in mind, how do we deliver this technically? And for all the technophiles, I'm sure on the call, they would be interested in the details. And at a very high level, what we have done, as I mentioned before, is that we've consolidated our know-how over the past 8 years in terms of delivering Genesis and multi-channel Genesis with over 40-odd customers. We have consolidated know-how now within our own hosted proposition. And essentially what we have is a centralized architecture where essentially all of the capability is being delivered over a data network pipe into your building. So your entire Genesis technology and the add-ons associated with it to enable the service are all hosted within our data centers, and they boast all the capability that a contact center could require, as well as the associated back office functions, ranging from, we talked about multi-channel, ranging from workforce management tools, quality management tools, self-service applications, and detailed MI tools. Now, that as a service is being delivered directly to the agent desktop over private IP networks. So the speed of delivery is much faster in terms of there's no thick client, or there's not a lot of thick client applications to be installed. It can be turned on as a service within 6 weeks, and that's really the power of and the flexibility of our feature-rich platform. So going back to the original question that Paul posed, is that okay? So I'm using, hypothetically speaking, so I'm running a contact center and I'm using inbound voice, and I have deployed email and I have deployed web chat and I'm running on G-Cloud. How easy is it for me to then extend a new channel onto it? And this is where, if people have worked with Genesis before, they will come to appreciate that when it comes to when people that have engaged in multi-channel before, that when it comes to introducing a new channel, or in this case I've taken the example of SMS, there are a number of not only technology but also business considerations that you need to take into account. For example, as Paul alluded to earlier, is that we need to be able to maintain a consistency of interaction. We need to be able to maintain the interaction if it comes through, if the medium is changed between, let's say, voice to email. We need to be able the ability to route it to the same person, if appropriate, to deal with the interaction, so to maintain the customer experience and the continuity. But not only that, we need to be able to have effective reporting MI for that interaction. So there are multiple of business and technology considerations one has to make, which can be quite off-putting at times if you're using a disparate set of systems. With G-Cloud, or if you're using a more modern Genesis customer interaction environment, adding a new channel is a matter of simply adding a new, you can say, an interface into your Genesis customer interaction management platform. That's what we offer through G-Cloud, and behind the scenes we are able to normalize that interaction for all contexts of routing and reporting as required, so that you essentially don't change anything on the agent desktop. You maintain your existing agent desktop. That same agent desktop is now able to manage the new channel type coming through. So in the example of NSPCC, and I'm drawing a parallel here, we attempted to do precisely the same. They had email, web chat, inbound, and adding SMS was not a drawn-out procedure. In actual fact, it was much simpler, as we had a consistent customer interaction management platform, and the same holds true for G-Cloud. So on that note, I will hand you guys back to Paul to talk about how all of this can actually make some real business sense.
Okay, so I guess the question here is, how does the hosted platform change the dynamics of the investment case, the return on investment model? Before I talk to you specifically about our experiences here, I just wanted to get some insight as to what people's perceptions about the costs of hosted are. So we have a question here where there are 3 answers. So do you currently perceive that hosted is going to be cheaper than the traditional customer premise equipment deployment, the traditional way that you have to buy IT? So first of all, do you perceive it's cheaper? Maybe that's because there's less upfront capex. Or do you perceive it's about the same price by the time you take into account all the other costs that you need to consider? Or do you perceive that it's more expensive? So if you're looking at the full life cycle of technology ownership, would the accountant's view be that it's more expensive? So just give you a second to think about that. Again, just testing your perceptions about what you believe the cost dynamics to be.
Particularly pertinent question at the moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
very austerity measures and all that.
Indeed, indeed. So I'd be interested to see what everyone says. I think I know what it's going to be.
If I make a prediction, I think we should see more on item 3. Hosted is more expensive.
Okay.
Okay, TJ.
Osman put his neck out for a...
I'm very pleased to say Osman is wrong. Okay, so this question was about your perception. So, interestingly, the largest response is that you perceive it to be about the same cost. Second to that, where people believe it's going to be cheaper, but only 10% think it will be more expensive. Okay, so very interesting to see your perceptions. I'm now going to answer my own exam question, if you like, and that's really around trying to share with you some of the things that we've done to overcome a perception that Genesis is firstly expensive, secondly it takes a long time to implement, and therefore you need to have very deep pockets. Because what Protocol 1 has done with the G-Cloud implementation is first of all provide a multi-tenant platform, as Osman was saying. So effectively there is shared infrastructure. So what that means is each individual client, each individual tenant on the platform actually has a cost so has a share of the overheads of the infrastructure, and what that does is it lowers the total cost of ownership. Secondly, we've already pre-built all of the applications, so that therefore means that individual tenants, individual clients are not exposed to a large professional services customization effort, because essentially all that work's already been done and again can be amortized across a number of clients. Thirdly, it's a much quicker deployment method. So if you're implementing in 6 weeks rather than 6 months, what that therefore means is that your business case, particularly those that resolve around cost savings, can be realised earlier. And fourthly, as we've already touched upon, there is a reduced capex, particularly I think in the public sector, that's going to resonate and reduce the barrier to be able to pilot and adopt new sort of channels. And we're certainly seeing interest in sort of local government around being able to deploy some of these newer methods of sort of contact. As a result of that, what we're seeing in the market is that the interest is very much focusing with our clients and prospects around those that have what I would term relatively complex requirements. So that's at the kind of the right-hand side of this particular quadrant, and where would consultants be without a 2x2 matrix. So effectively, where you've got a fairly sophisticated amount of requirements, so you are looking to implement new channels, doesn't matter so much about having a large number of agents. That's what the hosted infrastructure and the shared infrastructure means, is that you can deploy Genesis much more cost effectively at much lower sort of seat levels. There is potentially opportunity to move hosted into much more scalable type solutions. I think what you get into there are the semantics about whether those clients want a public hosted service where there are tenants sitting on a shared infrastructure. Certainly one of the conversations we're having at the moment with a major blue chip company is actually around them creating their own private version of sort of G-Cloud. So again, I think where the sophistication is there, particularly in terms of adopting new channels, then hosted Genesis solution may well be sort of relevant. Okay, and lastly, a sort of mini business case. One of the things that we always do when looking at the pricing model is basically ask ourselves the question, what would the total cost of ownership be if the client was actually doing this as a CPE solution? Let's look at that over 3 years. So let's factor in the capex, let's factor in the implementation effort, let's factor in the cost of support, and potentially the cost of finance. And then let's compare that with the hosted model. And if it's not cheaper by at least 10% over 3 years, then there's something wrong in our sort of calculations. So the idea here very much is to be able to mean that the barriers to being able to implement these new channels are reduced, and what we would then do is provide consultancy and support to help you drive your KPIs and improve your operational performance so that you actually get savings or more effective customer satisfaction, NPS ratings, etc., to actually make the sort of business case fly. And to finish, a worked example. So this was done for a company that was looking at a 600-seat platform. We essentially did a 3-year contract term. We compared hosted versus the CPE alternative. And as you can see, we managed to indicate to the client a £250,000 saving, so just shy of 10% reduction in total cost of ownership over a 3-year basis. So again, a demonstrable ROI with all the other benefits that Osman sort of indicated. Okay, so that's a fairly quick coverage across how we can help our customers to solve the multi-channel riddle. I'm going to hand over back now to Claudia, and we're available to answer your questions.
Thanks for that, Paul, and thanks, Osman. That was a really insightful presentation. And we have time for some questions, so please do keep those coming in. And we've had a few in from a number of people actually have asked how viable this kind of solution is for larger call centres. Should larger call centres be thinking about this, or should they be thinking about in-house?
I think there's a part there.
Yeah, I think yeah. So Osman, if you give a technical answer, then I'll kind of give a slightly more commercial answer.
Right. Okay. So from a technological perspective, how viable, feasible it is, absolutely, it's actually quite viable and very feasible to make this work for large contact centres as well. One of our prospects that we're working at the moment, actually I should qualify that further. Most of our prospects that we're working at the moment are above 200 seats, and they are bordering close to 1,000 seats as well. So that's one aspect of it. In terms of the platform scalability itself, we as Protocol One have built in the past a number of platforms that can scale to thousands of seats, and we have built G-Cloud in the same vein as well, and that is we have tested to scale up to 5,000 seats, and we believe that we can actually take it even further. So any single tenant can take as much capacity as it is required, as we have a very modular and scalable design to supporting our platform. So that's the technical answer. Over to you.
Okay, I think the question about viability is actually a question of the mindset of the organisation that we're actually talking to. Because I think there are still some organisations that believe that technology needs to be controlled and managed locally. And those types of organisations have built up quite a sort of internal capability to be able to build, maintain, refresh technology. And those types of organisations find it really a bit of a leap of faith to then move into the sort of public hosted arena. So I think firstly the viability question is around the mindset of the organisation. So how much is SaaS software as a service and cloud-based computing? How much is that part of the technical roadmap within the ICT, the IT community? Where it is in the mindset of that community, then certainly then starting to look at the benefit of being able to, or how the relevance of benefits of being able to deploy new channels quickly and easily. That's something that sort of comes into play, and I think we'll also see some variations on a theme. So I think we will see some examples where larger clients are building their own private cloud solutions. I think we'll also see some Genesis customers that want to implement a new channel that choose to do that via the hosted route, purely because it gives them ability to sort of go to market earlier. So a bit of a sort of multi-choice answer from me, Claudia, but I think it does very much depend on the kind of mindset that the client organisation is actually in.
Absolutely. Okay, that makes sense. So we've had a few attendees as well talking about remote workers and how this all works if you have sort of multiple sites and if you've got remote workers working at home, for example, as well. I mean, are there any security implications, or what should people think about when they've got that situation?
It's quite topical at the moment around remote workers and security implications. I think when it comes to the technology, when you look at security implications, one has to consider, unfortunately, the PPT, people, process, and technology, and they put aside the whole aspect of working environment and making sure that you have the right equipment and the right processes in place so that security is not compromised. In terms of the technology itself, we are able to deliver it to remote workers, to home workers, to remote offices in a manner that complies with a number of security standards that any organization may have. So to give an example, it's about making sure that there's a level of encryption in the access that people have into our platform. Certainly, we can offer that. We offer that in two different methods. One is we are able to deliver the service directly to remote workers. Also, they can come over their corporate VPN and access our platform through that manner as well. So technology is not necessarily a problem, but when you look at PCI DSS compliance and or any other compliance standards that one must adhere to, it is a people process technology problem that we need to address with looking at all three aspects.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, time for just maybe one more question. So we've some of the attendees are intrigued to know a bit more about sort of how to kind of sell in, if you like, to the rest of the organisation this kind of technology. So apart from obviously the monetary sort of considerations are important, but what else do you think sort of a call centre manager who's listening to this now should be telling their senior management team about this technology? I mean, what are the sort of compelling arguments, if you like?
Yeah, thanks, Claudia. I think the compelling call to action is that technology is no longer the barrier to being able to implement a brand new channel. So, if, for example, in your organisation you have a mandate to be able to reduce the cost to serve, so that by implication means that you want more people to engage with you online. There are various ways in which the contact centre can support that as a kind of corporate initiative. It could offer a web chat type service, for example. And I think the takeaway I would ask the audience to bear in mind is that that's now something that you can pilot and you can trial straight away without any of the historic IT barriers of having to wait for your slot in the kind of 2-year roadmap. It's now something that you could be up and running if you wanted to be in sort of 30 days' time. So I think what that therefore means is that you can start to think about what will be the rationale for being able to make your contact centre truly multi-channel. So in other words, what does it mean in terms of the staff that you have in the contact centre? How do you manage those channels? How do you support the service levels? How do you do the resource management? How do you do the workforce management? And those are all factors that you need to start to get your heads around, because it's no longer a case of the answer from IT being no. What was the question? It's now a question of actually maybe we sort of can do this. So I think the ball is back into the control of the contact centre manager and the marketing team to be able to say, how do we start to exploit these emerging channels, and particularly social media, given that this emerging technology is becoming real.
Fantastic. Okay, that was a really comprehensive answer. Great. So I think that's kind of all we've got time for this session. But a great big thank you to Paul and to Osman, and to all of you for attending. For those of you interested in continuing the conversation, we're all going to be transferred to Protocol One's stand now in the virtual exhibition, where some representatives will be on hand to answer any more questions that you have. But I do hope that you've enjoyed today's live conference sessions, and that you will be able to attend future events from Call Centre and Customer Management Expo Live. Thank you very much.